What is your will, my master?
Hey, good morning, Eric. Quick demo video for you for your regional manager. This is by Watto's Junkyard. This is obviously the Maul staff, or it's the Maul saber that goes to your Maul and Ventress staff. The Ventress is the half that I previously had done for you. That has the coupler to make this a staff. Thank you for your patience on this. This came in a lot of pieces, and it's very different than the Ventress half that I did. I weathered this guy per your request, but I weathered all the individual pieces before I put it on. I mean, there's 10 pieces just in these fins before I glued them on, and these are glued on. You've got two different pommel or two different style emitters. You've got this one, which is the open one, and that just screws on, and then you've got this one, which is kind of just your cap here. It's a solid piece, but this has been weathered as well in case you want to use it. A lot of stuff going on in this guy, and it's way different from the other half. Like I said, the other half was a 2-button setup, static chassis with a 28mm speaker. This one has a 24mm speaker. It's a removable chassis, and it's a 1-button setup. That one button is right here. Okay, the chassis is very tight. Okay, and I'll show you what I do to get it out, and then I'll also send you this test blade that I use. But anyway, when you come over here to the pommel, you can see that there. Just take your finger in here. Well, first you want to loosen this guy up. That's very important. You want to loosen this guy before you unscrew this or screw it in. If you don't, it gets in the way of the threads and it locks in, and it's not going to be easy to unscrew it. But this might help you also to lock in the coupler when you screw this together to make a staff. So we'll unscrew this. I'm trying to make sure I don't drop it. Take it out. This was a multiple piece part as well, and then it glued to the threading. But I had to take it apart and sand this quite a bit all around the edges so that I could shrink that diameter down and it would go in your saber well. But it's good now. But that's part of the reason why you don't want to force it when you're screwing it in or taking it out, because it is just glued to this aluminum threaded piece. But it does have shine through, and I made sure that I lit that up for you, and I'll show you that here in a minute when we fire it up. But when you take that out, you'll see your chassis here. So if I turn it this way, you can see that there's your board. There's a pixel accent for the pommel, but it is very tight trying to get it out of there. There is a small variance in the diameter of the inside of this hilt right here. So what I do is I take this small 7/8 inch test blade I've got. I don't have this glued in because I've had to do this on some other sabers. I'm just going to send you this blade because it is a helpful tool to get the chassis out. But what I do is I just pop this piece out, make this a hollow tube, and I'll come over here and I'll put it in the emitter. And I'll push down a little bit. Actually, it might help if you take this piece off. The fitting on this saber for the blade is very tight, and you'll need to sand your blade. You'll need to sand your blade quite a bit, actually, and this test blade is actually what I'm using to test the saber too when I get it all fired up. But I'll put it in here. I give the chassis a little bit of a push, just a little bit. Pull this back out, and then I can reach in here with my finger. Don't push on the pins or the LEDs. Try to push on the side of the pixel holder, and you can pop the chassis out just like that. And then from here, you can go ahead and pull it out. There's a lot of stuff going on there, right? I know. You can see from the shiny part here on the chassis and the shiny part here, that is where the two variances are in this saber, because this chassis is all the same diameter. That's how I modeled it. It printed it out fine, but it's just tight right here, and it's right here in the chassis, so that, or in the saber, and that correlates roughly to about right here and right here inside, right? But it's no big deal. It's getting easier the more I do it. But it's still firm, which is what I wanted anyway. You know, so you shouldn't have any problems there. But here's your chassis. So you got a removable battery set up over here. Try to hide all the wires. It was a very tight cram food job to try to hide all the wires because I've got all the wires for your CC Sabers lit PCB, your battery tabs, obviously. Come over here, you've got this pixel accent, and then you've also got your single brass switch right here. This is a one button setup like I was telling you. So you got that brass switch, and then you've got, of course, that channel for the switch to ride in. So this chassis only goes in one way. But if you look at the back, I've got, you know, we've got that pixel, we've got this pixel, and then on the end, we've got this pixel. So the two on the sides are for these clear acrylic pieces right here in your saber. I wanted to be able to light those up for you right here and here, and those light up well. And then, of course, the one on the back is for your crystal pommel. These are all wired separately, so you can just program them to do whatever you want to do. Currently, I've got these two will be blinking on and off. If I can, right here, here, and here. These two will be blinking back and forth when the saber is off, but they're on a timer, so they'll go off, you know, eventually if you don't turn the saber on. What I did with the back crystal pommel is I gave it the same blade style as you gave me for your fonts. So you sent me 6 fonts, and you gave me blade styles for them. I gave this back pommel the same blade style as your main blade, but each sound font has 4 blade styles. You know, you got 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all wired separate. Okay. And a copy of the config file is on your SD card, so you'll see what I did there as well. The Proffie is just a snap fit down into the shelf. It's a nice firm fit. It didn't need to be glued or anything, but you never need to lift it up because you've got access to your SD card and your micro USB from right here. So everything can be done from right here. And then your speaker is back here. You got a 24 millimeter Smuggler's Outpost speaker. It's the biggest speaker that would fit in the Saber. Now, normally on the on the on the parts installed on the Saber, you've got one black O-ring here. You would have another one right here, but I left this off. It's going to be hard to see on camera. Maybe you can barely see it. But you can see all those perforated lines or those perforated holes, and it goes all around the Saber. Those are your sound venting holes. So I had to leave that black O-ring off so sound could escape, right? And when this chassis is in, that speaker lines up, you know, with those perforated holes. So it sounds really good. All right. What else have we got? Let's go ahead and put a battery in this guy. I did take the
Formerly Darth. Now just Maul.
see how I got those blinking? They'll go off eventually. The back pommel will light up with your blade, so your crystal fires up with your blade. When you're putting this in, you have to watch out for your main switch. So your one switch is right here, but it's not on a spring. It free floats. So when we put this in, you're going to want to make sure that that wire, that switch channel right here, you know, is lined up with your 2 red switches here. And that's how you do that. We'll put it in. But before you get to your actual switch, you can do this one of 2 ways. You can take this switch and hold it up as you put the chassis in, which is what I prefer to do. Or you can make sure that your switches are facing on the bottom, right? So gravity just kind of drops that switch as you put the chassis in. I personally like to just take my fingers and hold the switch up as I feed the chassis in. I feel like I have a little bit more control that way. And then it'll go all the way in. And then just take your finger. You don't need to press on the pixel at all. You can press on the side of the chassis, but you can push it all the way in and lock it down just like that. And then you'll know it's all the way in there because it's past the threads. But also, this chassis, or I'm sorry, the switch won't work unless the chassis is all the way in. So you know it's working. I took swing off or swing on off the Saber, but I did give you twist off. I believe that's consistent with the Ventress that I did for you. And then we'll just screw this back in. You can leave it, or you can take this and you can lock it back down. Make sure everything's locked down. And then you can see your two blinkies going right here, and then they timed out, right? I'll take my little test blade that I took apart to take the chassis out, and I'll just put it right back together. It just snaps right back together. That's all I'm doing there. Oh, we can turn this on. Because it's so tight, I like to have the saber on as I'm putting the blade in. So I know as soon as I hit those pins like that, I'll stop. And then you've got your blinkies going on again. And then your crystal back here. They will react to the auxiliary button being pressed. Got your sound fonts on here. So it's just a double tap when the saber's off to get to your soundtrack, and then a double tap again to turn it off. To get to your next font, it's just kind of a long press on the button.
I claim this sword and my rightful place as leader of Deathwatch.
One thing of note is, even though this has the same blade style as your blade, this is going to show up as red always because it's a red acrylic crystal, right? You can see it kind of unstable like your blade. Speaker sounds really good. The 24mm speaker is fully enclosed in the chassis, so it's pushing out all the sound, and actually it sounds a lot better than I had expected it to for just these perforated holes, because I'm only using about half of them. Blade lockup. So these respond to blade lockup too. You just hold the button down and hit the saber. And you can see that going on there. And it stays like that until you let go. Just like that.
I can see him in my mind's eye. I have been waiting. What fun! What fun! Every choice you have made has led you to
Very solid though. Just like that. And I'm not even using the blade retention. It is on here though. It's super small. Right up there on the upper lip. You can see that there. I didn't need it. I didn't need to use it. This particular blade that I'm sending you as a, just as a tool to take your chassis out, it's been sanded significantly over the course of, year and a half or so, and it's still, fairly snug. So we'll pop the LEDs back out, come over here and loosen this guy up. Don't ever forget to loosen that up so that we can untwist your pommel. Pull that out. Take this guy, push the chassis out a little bit. Remember, it just needs about ½ inch or so to push with that tool, and then you can come in here with your finger and you can push it out that way and then pull it right out. It's just an extremely snug fit. And then the positive side of this guy is over here by your pixel connector, and you can pop it out with your finger just like that. I did opt to not paint the chassis on this because it was such a tight fit that any kind of finish on here would have added some diameter to this chassis, and it couldn't afford to have that because it's just so snug. So I just opted to do a very nice smooth finish on your chassis. So I hope you like that. Let me know if you got any questions. If not, I will get this guy out in the mail to you first thing tomorrow morning. All right, thanks.